On today's Locked On Texan podcast, Cody brings to you who's at practice on Tuesday and Nick Sirio. Is he leaving? Is he staying? What's going on with that situation? Don't go anywhere. Locked On Texans podcast.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, Locked On Texan fans, listeners, and viewers, Texan fans across the nation, to this Wednesday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If this is your first time, thank you for stopping by to the Locked On Texan podcast. You guys have been doing a great job subscribing, so keep that going. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And if this is your second time, third time, anytime returning back, watching or listening to the Locked On Texan podcast, thank you. Continue to watch and listen as Cody and I continue to talk Texans every day. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side, as always, is your Sports Illustrated's own credentialed media member, Cody Davis. We're going to look at...
I got a funny story to share real quick. So right before we record, I always grab my notebook where I got all my notes. This particular day, grabbed the wrong notebook. As soon as I opened it up, I saw Lonnie Johnson Jr. converting back to safety. We came a long way, people.
We came a long way.
I said, "Oh heck no!" I instantly threw that notebook in the trash.
We need to do a show.
Oh my goodness!
Burn it, right? Like a jersey, like some of y'all did the Deshaun Watson jersey. Just burn it. We need to do a show dedicated to how far this Texas team has come. It's like a what's my man? A long time coming.
Yep,
it's
Sam
like that
Cook.
For the Texans. Sam Cook. It's a Sam Cook for the Texans. We got to talk about Nick Sirio kind of going off on Sports Radio 610. That was fun. We look at the difference between the offense against the Browns now that C.J. Stroud will be featured, but we open up today's show looking at the wild card game injury report. Before we do that, I got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by none other than Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 or more infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com and use promo code LOCKED ON to get $20 off your order. That is JASE Medical, jacemedical.com. Cody, you was out there at the NRG Stadium at practice. Who was there, who was featured, who was not, who was resting, who was expected to play, who's still on the bubble, right? All hands on deck type of week. What's going on right now with the Texans injury report?
Well, Tuesday's practice was more so like a walkthrough. I believe today, Wednesday, they're definitely going to have pads on. So, I think if anything, that's going to be the most important injury report right there because, look, you guys know the drill. I say it every single week. If you don't practice by that last practice day right before they travel or stay home and do another walkthrough, there's a great percentage that you would not play on that particular game. And as of right now on Tuesday, Will Anderson Jr., Noah Brown, Malik Collins, Jonathan Grenard, Jerry Hughes, Shaq Mason, Sheldon Rankins, Laramie Tunsil, Robert Woods. They were 9 participants at practice. Limited participants, Andrew Beck, Michael Dieter. Don't really worry about those 2 names too much because, look, limited participant, that's better than not participant. However, with the non-participants, you guys should already know guys like Shaq Mason, Laramie Tunsil, Malik Collins at times, Jerry Hughes. Like, these are the guys who normally don't practice that first practice day. They always take a vet day. However, the number one name that I'm looking at on this list, no, it's not Will Anderson Jr. because I think it's safe to say Will Anderson is definitely going to play, especially considering that he fought through injuries through the first 2 weeks. But the number one name on this list as of right now, Jonathan Grenard. This is a guy who has missed the last 2 games. This is a guy who finished the regular season. Look, not finished the season, finished the regular season in sacks with 12.5. And John it's going to be very important for Jonathan Gennard to get back out there on the field. He's still dealing with that left ankle injury. And I kind of hate knowing that him and Will Anderson Jr., even if Gennard comes back and play, he's not going to be 100%. I get it. This time of the year, nobody is 100%. However, all you have to do is go back to the game against the Cleveland Browns, and you saw what Joe Flacco finished with, like 380, 385, somewhere along those lines. And the reason why he was able to have such a phenomenal day was due to the fact that the defensive front could not get any type of pressure on him. And you're looking at a situation. Yes, everybody's excited about this matchup, especially considering that you're going into this matchup with C.J. Stroud. We get into that in the next segment. However, knowing that there is a possibility that you're going to go into this game with possibly one of your top two edge rushers, and if you do have two of your edge rushers, both of them is going to be, trying to battle and fight through injuries. That's the most concerning thing about this injury report. And of course, the second most concerning thing, Noah Brown, Robert Woods, both of those guys, non-participant, did not play in Saturday's game against the Indianapolis Colts. John, you touched on it on yesterday. If both of those guys or one of those guys are unable to go, how in the world will the Texans wide receiving core, how in the world would this offense be able to generate yards, generate points in order to move on to the next round? I get it, understand it. Nico Collins, $1.95 on the day. Yes, he is prime time. We got to revisit the topic. Is he a top 10, top 15 wide receiver in the league? You're going there with C.J. Stroud. However, the biggest difference between the Colts and the Browns, the Colts, a respectable defense, potential to be one of the top in the league. The Browns, they are the top in the league.
I think with this injury report that's out right now, looking at who did and didn't practice, yeah, they're going to need that help from their wide receivers. So they're going to need Robert Woods and Noah Brown. But I think Houston will be in a world of trouble if Rankins and Malik Collins paired together, don't play. They didn't practice Tuesday. They got to create that pressure up the middle. I also, to add to that, I think, we talked about what can Houston do differently this go round. We talked about getting after Joe Flacco and creating that pressure. And I gave you guys some of the numbers. Under pressure, he threw 2 interceptions. I think a good way to knock him off his game, maybe Christian Harris had a sack the last game. Maybe you send him on a blitz a few times, maybe on 2nd and long, maybe on 3rd and long, get him off rhythm a little bit. Joe Flacco, I'm speaking of. But they're going to need their 2 dogs in the middle of their defensive line. They're going to need Malik Collins. They're going to need Sheldon Rankins. We know about the newly signed Tier Tart, who, by the way, just had a field day on social media yesterday, looking at Mike Vrabel getting fired. We know how good the USFL champ Khalil Davis has played for Houston, and Heinrich has had his moments for Houston. But that defensive tackle unit, that group moves wherever Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins takes them. Davis talked about that. He talked about how he had learned, and all he has to do is just look at what those guys are doing in front of him. And that's a big reason why we're seeing this team defensive line have some success through 17 games, 18 weeks. On 2 of the 7 sack games, one against Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I had one a couple of weeks ago against the Tennessee Titans. The D tackle unit was instrumental in being able to disrupt the quarterback and cause disruption. So they're going to need those 2 D tackles, and make no mistake about it. I'm not worried about Shaq Mason. I know he'll play. I'm not necessarily worried about Laramie Tunsil. I know Laramie Tunsil is going to play. But Robert Woods and Noah Brown, they got to be on the field. They have to be on the field because it's time and time again, there's nobody else to count on in that room. And I don't think this is a game where even if Nico goes out and give you 195, somebody else has to do their part. And with that being said, I would love to see, I may be jumping ahead of myself, but I would love to see this offense get Brevin Jordan involved. But back to the injury report, guys, I think they really need both Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins on that field at the same time. So hopefully today's Wednesday. Wednesday will be better. Thursday will be better. Maybe Friday will be better, right? Maybe they give them an extra day to rest and go through the last walkthrough Friday because they're going to need all hands on deck. They don't have to travel. The game is at home. Maybe that's the day where we'll see players. We'll see players say, hey, you know what? I got it. The extra rest helped me. I can go out there and play now. I know we come to talk sports to escape from the harsh realities that we can have in real life, but can we talk just a little minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. Trust me, I know the flu is attacking everybody I knew. Thankfully, I've been able to duck and dodge it, but I'm also prepared with Jace Medical. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than not being able to get my kids what they need during this flu season, but not have the antibiotics. While the supply chain issue is just really hurting Americans right now. Thankfully, again, I'll be okay. You can be okay because of Jace Medical. Jace Case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others. This stuff can be helpful, and it can happen to any of us. So stay prepared whenever you have the chance to be prepared. You stay ready. You don't got to get ready, right? Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Excuse me. It's never more important to be more prepared than it is today. Go to Jace Medical, JASE medical.com, and use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, locked on, to get $20 off your order. Also, make sure you get your health right, but also have some fun. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You ain't playing against your friend. You're not playing against your homeboy from college. You're not playing against your mom who want to make some extra scratch. It's just you against the numbers. You pick the more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Now with the basketball season, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James, or you're looking at Nico Collins at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. You can also play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find the community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Let's have some fun together. Go to prizepicks.com or download the app on your phone, Prize Picks. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON, NFL, Locked On NFL, for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com or download the app on your phone and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for a first-time deposit match up to $100.
They said there's no difference. It's just what you make it. And for me, I think that's one thing that I can appreciate is the honesty, just not blowing things up with them. Like, they're always going to be honest with me and not tell me something's bigger than what it is or lesser than what it's going to be. It's just football. Just be yourself is what they always tell me. So I've played in playoff games before, big games, and the less that you put pressure on yourself, I feel like the more you just execute and do your job, then that's when good things happen.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans. That was, of course, your franchise quarterback, C.J. Stroud, talking about what he's been told about the playoffs, how can the intensity and everything else in between is different from the regular season. The one thing I love about C.J., he never makes the moment too big. And I think
he's gonna praise Lord and Savior.
Of course, he's always gonna do that. Man,
shout out to
love
CJ,
that.
man. I'm talking about Christ Jesus when I say CJ. Shout out to CJ Stroud too.
Hey, they got the same initials, so there you go. Now it's starting to make sense. Now just
think CJ from back in the day could drop back and throw some of them passes he did to Nico, or in this case, John the Baptist? You think
I think so. I
think so?
definitely think
Okay.
so. No,
All right.
most definitely. Most definitely.
All pro
But,
CJ.
but of course, the number one thing on everybody's mind heading into this rematch against the Cleveland Browns is the fact that CJ will be on the field. And you're looking at a situation where throughout this whole entire season, whether it was the phenomenal games, the good games, the solid games, the okay games, or even some of the bad games, and I think we can only count maybe 2 games where the offense did not look good with CJ under center. And I don't know about you guys, but without a shadow of a doubt, I do believe that the Houston Texans will be able to record over 200, and I think 5 or 215 yards this go round, because that was the total that they only recorded against the Cleveland Browns during the first go round. We already know how good CJ is. You're looking at a rookie quarterback who finished 3rd all time in passing yards for rookie quarterbacks, trailing just Andrew Luck and Justin Herbert. And look, if he doesn't miss those 2 games, I think we'd be sitting here talking about a record-breaking season for our God. However, John, as great as CJ has looked throughout this whole entire season, and you missed week 16 against the Browns, do you have any type of concern regarding CJ's ability to continue living up to that stature in the playoffs? Only because you are playing against the top rated defense in the league. And I know that question might sound crazy to some people, but I think there's a lot of factors you got to consider. CJ himself, whether or not you be able to run the football, what are you going to get out your offensive line that's been up and down through this entire season, and something that we've been talking about over the last 2 games, your wide receiving core?
I don't have no concern, because even if we look at CJ going out there, and if he has not the greatest of games, I can't be mad at it.
Mm-hmm.
He just wielded his team in his rookie year to the playoffs. And I think that, they are probably, and I know they are, right, going through a lot of film and looking at some of the things Case didn't do well, some of the things Davis Mills did do well, some of the things that they can maybe maximize on, some of the things that they can minimize on, right? And again, it isn't just all on the defense here. When we talk about the Texans taking on the Browns, the offense, excuse me. It isn't all on the offense. That defense needs to tighten up. You can't allow Amari Cooper to go crazy again in the NRG Stadium. That can't happen. You can't allow Joe Flacco to have the amount of time that he had on some of those possessions because the lack of pressure. That can't happen. So when we look at CJ, I think we may look at more to come out of that offense. I think that what lacked in that first meeting was the D ball. CJ has been, and I'm looking at some of the numbers right here. Deep left of the field, he's completed 46% of his passes, only 1 TD. Deep center, he's completed 76.5% of his passes, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns. Deep right, 438, 4 touchdowns overall. Deep passes on the year, over 1,100 yards, 56% of his passes were completed. But here's the big number, 8 TDs. There were only 2 deep attempts in that game against the Cleveland Browns. So I think when you get CJ back against this defense, that does make your offense more honest. Right now, we're looking at the limitations of Case Keenum. That defense knows that, right? Some of those guys like Myles Garrett and maybe other guys were in Cleveland when Case was in Cleveland not too long ago. So they know some of his can-dos, can't-dos, and I think that played into how that defense took on the Houston Texans. With CJ, you kind of got to stay honest a little bit because he is very accurate at all 3 levels of throwing the ball. And with that, you would expect for the running game to be more effective because now you have to respect the quarterback. And if you respect the quarterback, maybe you back off a little bit. Maybe you see some, maybe 2 high safeties, which will help Houston run the ball. But I think when you add Stroud back to this offense, you're getting a different element compared to, of course, Case Keenum and Davis Mills, a franchise savior who went out there and got C.J. Stroud with the number 2 pick, right? And I think that's a positive. I think that even if he doesn't have, again, if he has an okay game or he doesn't have the performance, which I don't think he will, I think he would go out there and ball out. But if he doesn't, I'm not concerned. I, how can we be concerned after the season the Texans had? But again, that defense got to tighten up, and I'm looking more. I'm more concerned about that defense creating pressure on Joe Flacco, especially with some of these DNPs from Tuesday practice, compared to C.J. Stroud and what he can and can't do.
I went back to make sure I got the correct numbers for you guys. The Texans did generate only 250 total yards. 178 came through the air, and a buck 49 came from Davis Mills. Of course, as you guys remember, Case Keenum started that game and only threw for 62 yards in 2 halves. Like I said, it was just a situation, just a topic that I really wanted to look at because look, we are all excited. CJ is 100% healthy this go round. This offense is definitely going to be a lot better, but it was just a little bit concerning knowing that this is the best version of an NFL defense that CJ will possibly face. However, I tell you what, John, whether win or lose, if he goes out there and still have, let's say, a good game against that defense, then we really know without a shadow of a doubt we have something special. But this is what CJ had to say about facing the Cleveland Browns for the very first time.
Yeah, they're a great team. I'm excited for this matchup again. I think they're the number one defense for a reason. You know, they do a lot of special things. Starts up front. Of course, Myles Garrett is one of the best players to ever play this game, and he proves it week in and week out. And their linebackers do a great job. Six is a great linebacker. He's a great player. And then on the back end, they do a good job of having sticky coverage and things like that. So this got to be on our A game to execute at a high level, and I'm excited for the matchup.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp, sponsored by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. I know a lot of times we can get caught up in some of the fads or social media and the comparison, but take time out, take a break, and look at some of the things that you're excelling in, that you're doing right for yourself. Maybe you can finally get organized, one part of your space, organize that one part of your space. Or if you want to tackle something else, do that. Maybe you're looking to take supplements every morning, and now you want to actually eat breakfast too. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. And I think that's the best way to look at a lot of these things. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I think therapy is another option of release that a lot of us need. And the best thing about BetterHelp, it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Nick Caserio wasn't having it. He was on Sports Radio 610 Tuesday morning. Was a Pain and Pendergast show early in the morning. And he kind of lit into the report of him. Was a GM out there, an anonymous GM, like they're always anonymous, who said he go back there regarding New England. Trust me. And Nick Caserio went left on it. And I honestly, I think after the year that Nick Caserio had, I like to see him because I think for me, that breaks his character a little bit. Nick Caserio is always point A to B. There's no stops. There's no in-betweens. He's going to take his time with an answer. He's going to dance around an answer a lot. But I think that to see him kind of step out of that element a little bit and kind of call it what it is, BS, that was great to hear. And I think to that report, when you look at the year Nick Caserio has had, top of the year, adversity, overcoming adversity, now in the playoffs, you draft C.J. Stroud, right? A lot of us want to credit that to maybe someone else in the organization. doesn't matter. It goes under his resume. Now, what we do give him credit for is having the balls enough to go up and say, hey, we want to trade up for Will Anderson. We're going to do that. The offseason signings, the free agent acquisitions, putting together a coaching staff constantly throughout the year, making sure that they stay ahead of the curve or beating the injury bug by bringing in guys that make sense for this roster. 3-13-1 last year, 10-7 this year, division champs, up for the Executive of the Year award. Why in the hell would he leave?
You know, this is one of them times, John, where you've been in a bunch of press conference like I have, and when we ask whether players, coaching staff, or even a coach about a particular opposing player or opposing coach, and they hit you with that, well, I really don't know too much about it because I'm doing my own thing here. So there was moments where I used to be like, man, get that out of here. You've been reading and seeing all the noise that's coming from this particular team, coach, GM, or whatever. But in this particular case, John, I'm starting to believe that maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe they're so focused on what they're doing at their respective job to the point they really don't know what else going on around the league. Because everything that you just said, John, I don't understand how in the world can a quote-unquote anonymous GM say not just he can see him going back to New England, but he left the trust me along with it. And it's funny that we're having this conversation because we was doing a year ago today?
Asking whether or not he's going to return.
Exactly. Yeah. The Texans had just finished their official press conference announcing the firing of Coach Lovie Smith, and the number one theme of that show on other people's shows, other people writing and stuff, because Nick Sirio demeanor changed so much in that press conference to the point we were all questioning whether or not he was going to be here. And we said the coaching hire, who you get in the draft, especially the quarterback. And I think we gave it a timeline, like what, the first 6 weeks or the first 8 weeks, or at least the first half of the season up to the bye week is going to tell whether or not Nick Caserio stays or goes. And around, let's say, the game after Tampa Bay, we all said Nick isn't leaving because and like I said, at the start of the season, when we started seeing some potential in this team, it doesn't make sense for a general manager to hire one of, if not the hottest name on the coaching market last year, to go out and hire at the time a number 2 quarterback prospect who ended up being the best quarterback prospect, who ended up being the best prospect of the draft, risk your draft picks. And it wasn't like what Bill O'Brien did a few years back. No, you end up getting somebody that probably would have been a number 1 pick if not for CJ and Bryce. You revamp this whole entire roster. You go throughout the season, continuing adding depth to this roster. You're 10-7. You're in the playoffs. There's a good chance you can make it to the divisional round. And depending on your matchup, you might make it to the next round. You're going to do all that. Have your greatest season in the world.
And leave.
That never made sense to me.
Thank y'all for allowing me to give y'all everything y'all needed in this season. Thank y'all for allowing me to be great for y'all. Y'all reap all the benefits. But I'm dipping. And I'm going back to a situation, by the way. I'm going back to a situation that ain't about a damn thing right now. I just drafted CJ. Let me tell you something. In this league, GMs typically live off what they do in the first round. In this league, GMs typically live off for the success of their quarterback. Right? CJ Stroud could quite possibly, remember a few years ago, we talked about it was Pat Mahomes. It was
Lamar Jackson.
It
was Deshaun at a small time.
Deshaun at a small time, but then you had Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
right? But it was
Josh Allen.
But for me, it was Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. That was the 3, right? In 5 years, maybe 3 years, maybe not even 5 years from now. But CJ has a chance to be mentioned not only with those 3, but quite possibly, depending on how they build this roster around him, of course, that matters, but can quite possibly, it can be whoever, this person, and CJ Stroud. It can be Lamar, Stroud, Mahomes. It can work out anyway, but can quite possibly be that third quarterback, that top tier quarterback.
But here's the thing. There's a chance that he might be the first quarterback you mentioned.
Right. So, and listen, right now you can say, hey, would you rather have CJ Stroud or Josh Allen right now? Like you can have
that's a real question.
That's right now. So why would he go back this year? Like it doesn't make sense. Trust me. GM, trust me. I ain't trusting you. Why would I trust you? You sound like trust me. Y'all want to make sure that y'all continue to listen and watch the Locked On Texans podcast throughout the week. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube, where you can trust some of the things that we say. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, it's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.